Repairs and modifications. In this video, we'll use make uniform and use repair body. In Fusion 360, we want to carry on with our car hood design. We've already added edges and we've tried to make sure that all the geometry is smooth. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have problems. And oftentimes, the problems are going to be extremely hard to find, especially if you had, let's say, a full car model as opposed to just the front end. Well, there are some tools and utilities that we can use to help simplify this process. First, we can use something called display mode. Display mode allows us to change back and forth between box display, control frame, or smooth. The box display will be the external edges or geometry that are controlling the underlying curvature. Now, oftentimes, box display will help us identify potential overlaps or problems. Everything might look fine on the smooth display, but the box display will highlight those problems. Everything looks pretty good here, but we could make some adjustments to make these areas more uniform. I'm going to go back to my smooth display and say OK, and note that we can use shortcut keys on the keyboard to go back and forth using Alt 1, 2, or 3 to get back and forth between box, the control frame, or the smooth display. Under Utilities, we also have options to repair body and make uniform. Let's take a look at repair body. We're going to select the body and we're going to allow it to look for different areas. For example, the error labels are error stars, T-points, free edges, and then we also have some geometry labels. When we take a look at these, you'll notice that as we zoom in, this T is a T-point. A T-point means that we have an edge that ends in the middle of another edge. That T-point is allowed and doesn't necessarily mean there's a problem, but oftentimes you will see errors in geometry introduced based on T-points. We have error stars, and these generally happen when we have a drastic change in curvature that happens at an intersection point between more than 4 edges. So you can see here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 coming in. And in this case, we only have 3. The ideal geometry is going to be all 4-sided patches. If we can maintain 4-sided patches on all of our geometry, then we won't see any error stars or T-points show up. You will note that all of these are yellow, and these yellow points are showing up as non-issues. They're just simply highlighting problems. The n-gons are showing areas that have, in this case, 3-sided patches. So you can see we have a 3-sided here, a 3-sided here, and on the other side because we have symmetry. Once again, it's really looking for those 4-sided patches as the ideal geometry. If we use auto repair, it'll go through the model and it'll try to repair any potential issues that you would see with the stars, T-points, or free edges. Because we don't have any of those problems, we can simply hit OK. Next, under Utilities, we have Make Uniform. We can select the T-spline body, and then we can say OK, and allow it to go through and try to adjust the scale of the different areas to try to make it more of a uniform display. Now, in this case, we have a lot of areas where we have these T-points and they're ending at individual sections. You'll also note that in some cases, we could likely get rid of these. Now, while there's not an automatic modification to make that happen, we do have the ability to select edges. And once we make those selections, we can hit delete on the keyboard to remove them. We will want to make sure that we go across, and we can do this by double-clicking on one of these edges, and it'll carry that tangency, and then we can hit delete on the keyboard. Using this process to clean up or simplify the model will go a long way in making sure that we don't introduce any of those error T-points or stars. In some cases, like this here, once we remove it, it might drastically alter the geometry, but everything so far looks pretty good. We might want to double-click on this edge, go to Modify, and add a crease. Adding a crease to that edge will affect change in other areas, but in most cases, this will likely mean that we get a cleaner set of geometry. I'm going to use Edit Form to pull the hood scoop up a little bit, and I'm going to say OK. So using some of those tools allowed us to make some drastic changes to the amount of divisions that we had and to make sure that we didn't have any errors. Once we made those changes by removing edges, we can always go back in and take a look at repair body and make sure that we don't have any problems that were introduced based on any geometry changes. For this example, everything looks pretty good, so I'm going to go back to a home view, make sure that I save the design before moving on.